Welcome to Film Jury, where movies stand trial and the verdict is always final. In every episode, our roundtable of film fanatics becomes the jury, dissecting the visuals, the sound, the storytelling, and the performances as they examine every element that makes or breaks a movie, because every film deserves its verdict. Warning, this podcast does contain strong language and major spoilers are ahead. Court is now in session. What is going on, and welcome to our latest episode of Film Jury. In this episode, we are breaking down the brand new release Predator Badlands, which is directed by Dan Trachtenberg. This is the 9th installment in the Predator franchise and Dan Trachtenberg's third entry, making him, I think, the longest running filmmaker in the Predator series. It's written by Patrick Asen, and it stars both Elle Fanning and, I'm going to get this name wrong, I apologize, Dimitrius Schuster. We'll just call him Dimitrius Schuster. I'm the host who cannot pronounce last names, James, and I'm joined by
Alabama
and
Cat Stratford.
Welcome back. So, Predator was one of the two, like, when I think about like movies I was obsessed with as a kid, particularly in the sci-fi and horror genre, it was Aliens from 1986 and it was Predator from 1987. And I would say Predator, the original with Arnold Schwarzenegger, is probably the film I saw the most, second only to Aliens. Like, I was obsessed with this movie as a kid, and I've been searching for that high again for now, almost 40 years. I've been searching for that high. I'm curious what each of your two background in this franchise was. We'll start with you, Kat.
This is actually the first time that I've seen a Predator movie all the way through. I was terrified of this franchise as a kid. Like, obviously, like, I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, so like I grew up with this franchise, but like it was kind of just in the background. This is what the grown-ups were watching, and it was terrifying. Like, what I understood was that like Predator like had like, the heat vision and stuff, and like I was terrified, and I really thought that I was gonna run into one on the playground, and I'm not even kidding. This was a great source of terror for me.
You wouldn't know if you did. What about you, Alabama?
I think very similar to you. I kind of Aliens and Predator like went hand in hand for me growing up, and it was kind of like all I knew about them was like they hunted humans and stuff. And it's funny now having my own children. All of my boy children have been obsessed with Predator. Like, it's just I feel like it's a boy thing. It's very like I wouldn't say masculine, but like it's a creature that's very scary. It hunts everything. Obviously, it's Predator. So it's just like the ultimate bad guy, I guess.
In a way, yeah. And I'm curious, like, when your kids and Kat, I think your kids are old enough to have seen some of these. Like, are they, like, when I think about the Predator franchise, I think about there's Predator from 1987 and then there's everything else. And like I said, I'm constantly searching to re-achieve that high. When your kids watch these movies, are they seeing any of the other entries into this franchise being like as good, or even like in equal in any way? Like, are they viewing it with the same judgment I am, because I have context and I have some history there?
No, I think for my kids, I started them on the original like Predator movies, and it's just such a like bad guy, the ultimate bad guy villain, but you're also kind of like rooting for him in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, they've all just like loved it, and I've seen Predator movies are constantly playing in my house. It's crazy.
What about you, Kat?
My daughter actually came with me to the movies to watch this last night, and it was her first time watching the Predator. Sorry, she was just off screen. But it was her first Predator movie too. So and my children are real connoisseurs of taste. So I actually don't know how much they would appreciate the 1987 Predator.
just because I feel like they would harp on the special effects.
You know what? I'm gonna jump in on that, because having watched all of these and having like an extreme addiction to the original, I rewatched the original not long ago in preparation of this. I will say the effects in the original hold up almost better than a lot of the newer entries, including this one. I'm curious your thoughts on that, Alabama.
I am one who doesn't love a lot of like CGI and stuff. I think the old one does hold up. I think there's a lot of like appreciation for old horror movies and the old special effects and stuff when it's not corny, you know, when they like really landed it. I think it lives true to this day. Like it's still a quality film. My kids watch these movies that came out way before they were born, and they love them. So,
do you have a favorite Predator film?
One I just watched.
The most recent one? The most recent one's your favorite?
I think for completely different, odd, random reasons, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm excited to get into this. All right. So let's get into a plot summary of Predator Badlands from 2025. We open with Dek, a runt predator from the Yautja Prime, who vows to hunt the Kalisk, an unkillable apex creature on the deadly world of Genna, to earn the approval of his father. Before he can depart, his father orders Dek's brother Quay to kill him for being too weak. Quay disobeys and launches Dek's ship instead, sacrificing himself as Dek watches his father execute his brother. Dek crash lands on Genna and barely survives the hostile wildlife. He teams up with Thia, a damaged Weyland-Yutani synthetic whose team was captured and destroyed by the Kalisk. She agrees to help Dek if he helps her recover her severed legs. They are later joined by a native creature Thia dubs Bud, who marks Dek with his scent. Meanwhile, Thea's sister, who's also a synthetic, Tessa, reactivates and begins hunting them. After finding her teammates' remains, Thea contacts Weyland-Yutani to request extraction and repairs. Dek encounters the Kalisk and actually beheads it, only for the creature to regenerate and overpower him, but spares his life after he recognizes Bud's scent on him. Weyland-Yutani's forces arrive, capturing Dek and the Kalisk. Tessa begins experimenting on Dek until Thea interferes. Scheduled for deactivation, Thea helps Dek escapes. Dek realizes Bud is the Kalisk's child and pushes him to rescue both Bud and the captured Kalisk. Without his predator weapons, he crafts organic tools from Genna's ecosystem. Dek and Bud assault the Weyland-Yutani base, free the Kalisk, and unleash chaos. Tessa, piloting a power loader and wielding Dek's laser weapon, kills the Kalisk but is ultimately destroyed by Dek and Bud when she tries to kill Thea. Dek returns to Yautja Prime with Thea and an older Bud and Tessa's skull as his trophy. He demands a cloaking device from his father as a reward for his hunt. When his father refuses, Dek avenges Quay, his brother, disarming his father as Bud bites off his father's head, killing him. As Dek claims victory, a massive ship arrives, heralding a coming confrontation with his mother as credits roll. So a lot happened in this movie. This was jam-packed. So let's start to unpack and let's start to dive in. And let's start with kind of the first opening act, where we are on Yautja Prime, which is the Predator's homeworld planet, and we meet Dek. He is a runt predator. He's undersized, he's underestimated, and he's over willing to try to prove himself. And we see this kind of intro training between him and his brother. I'm just kind of curious what you both are thinking of as we're kind of entering into this world. We're on a different planet. This is far in the future, and we have these two brothers sparring against each other, and they're speaking. They actually developed a language for this movie, a Yautja language specifically for this. And they actually hired the team that created the language from the Avatar movies from James Cameron. The same team created this language. And we're given all this subtext and understanding of the Yautja culture and what it is to be a Yautja, what it is to try to earn yourself a place within a clan. I'm curious where you both are at with the movie at this point.
I liked it because it kind of gave like a little bit of a history of like the background or the lifestyle, whatever, of the predator creatures and like their different little tribes or whatever, and like how they earn their weapons and that type of thing. And it was very like endearing, the whole little scenario with him and his brother. I kind of like tracked where the whole movie was going from that point.
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't love the intro. But I think that's like by design. The intro wasn't for me. The intro was for like I kind of perceived that as being like for the male viewers, to draw in them with this big action sequence, because like we open the movie and it's like two predators fighting. We don't initially have like, we figure out that they're brothers, and we figure out that actually like Quay was sent to like kill Dek.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this wasn't never a training sequence. This was actually like supposed to be an execution. But like we don't know any of that at first. It just opens with a fight scene. And so I remember thinking, God, how long is this movie? Is it just going to be fighting? Like, and I had to remind myself, wait a second, Elle Fanning's going to show up. Like, hang on. And then once we have like the father introduced and we get the gotcha of like, why didn't you kill him? Like that's when the movie became much more interesting for me.
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time a Yautja has been the protagonist. In every other installment, with like a slight exception in the first Alien v Predator film, the Yautja is exclusively an antagonist. It is the monster. It is the hunter that, you know, a human is trying to avoid or is trying to overpower. So clearly, you know, Trachtenberg and Patrick Asen, the writer, have to spell out a lot of getting people to understand what this culture is, how this culture operates. And I was noticing as I was watching this, did either of you see his first entry into the Predator universe, the movie Prey? Well, you didn't because you haven't seen any of the other films, Kat, but Alabama, have you seen Prey?
I don't think I have.
So
I'm not sure.
Prey was a project that they were working on almost secretly while they were creating the installment that hit theaters, which was called The Predator, directed by Shane Black, which the less we say about that, the better. But they rushed Prey to streaming only on Hulu. And the early marketing never mentioned that it was a Predator film. And outside of the fact that the cover art, the typography of the word prey matched the word predator, and how it was designed, and the fact that she has the main character's face on the poster has the glowing predator blood on her face, there was nothing else to indicate that this was a Predator film. And it ended up being, I rewatched it last night, and every time I watch it, I love this movie more because of how powerful this movie is. But the thing I notice as I'm watching this new film, it is almost a facsimile of what he did with the movie Prey.
Kat, now that you're talking about the movie Prey, I haven't seen it, or I feel like I've seen clips of it. I was in the room when somebody else was like watching this. And so like I do know the premise, and like yeah, now that you're saying it, like yeah, it's almost like kind of pretty identical.
You have someone who is trying to earn their place within a clan. In Prey, you have Naru's character, and she's trying to prove herself as a hunter, much like Dek is trying to prove himself as a hunter. She's not accepted as a hunter. She's supposed to be a healer in her clan. In Dek's clan, he's supposed to be cold, supposed to be killed. And she embarks on a hunt. She goes and hunts the Yautja. In this case, Dek goes to hunt the Kalisk. And with the goal of, I want to earn myself a place in this. And what we start to see is the arc of this character, you know, and the skill sets that they have to take on and learn to be strong enough to, earn a place within the clan. So I was like, that's interesting. You basically took the narrative of a female protagonist in a Comanche tribe, which is a very patriarchal tribe, and now we've turned it over to a Yautja trying to earn himself a place in a tribe that sees him as being weak and being as a runt. And I was like, that's interesting. Okay, so we're just noticing a lot of parallels here between these two.
I feel like they even kind of like there's that great line where what is the sister's name? Tessa, where Tessa says to Dek, "How does it feel to be prey?" And then he has that great like, "You tell me," and then everything explodes and it's great. But like they have that great line, "How does it feel to be prey?" And it feels like almost a callback. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is Dan Trachtenberg has a love for this franchise. And like I've seen all the movies, but I haven't dived into the books or the comic books or any of that deeper canon, which he is pulling into this, which I think is fascinating. I think that's really interesting, and I think he, like I said, when I watch Prey, every time I watch it, I love it more, particularly for the cinematography. And actually, it has the same I looked it up, has the same cinematographer as this film. So in this film, he brought back the writer and he brought back the cinematographer that he used in Prey. But when we're looking at this opening, so we're meeting the characters. I have to understand, we're hitting over the head that he's the runt, but we are hitting on the fact that his brother was saved by him at one point, so his brother thinks he owes him. My only confusion or I wouldn't say confusion, but my only hesitation in this is it's so hard to follow what's happening in the action because it's happening so fast. And I feel like it's all happening in that cave and it's so dark that I don't even know which predator's which, at any point until they start talking and they start, explaining who they are. But I was like, there's so much happening and I'm struggling to keep up with at least the visual element of it. And I'm curious, from a visual perspective, already we're introducing, there's going to be a lot of CGI in this. And I'm curious what you two think.
I didn't necessarily have a difficult time with it. I was, again, it started just action. And I think it's so funny that you said that was for the males, whatever. I have a teenage son who went to the movie with his friend and it started out with all the action and them speaking their own language. And they ended up walking out because they thought the whole movie was going to be that way.
Really?
So it's funny that you would think that was for the male when really teenage boys walked out of the movie and didn't even watch it to see any of the story unfold at all.
So they wanted more narrative and more story?
Yeah, so I guess they wanted, I guess it to creep into the story more than just bam, action out of nowhere, and they left. They didn't even watch the movie. So I think for me, action isn't necessarily my go-to. I want the story, but I like that it opened with the action and you had to kind of draw the story out of it. I very quickly saw that they weren't fighting to kill each other necessarily. You could tell the brother was maybe not, I wouldn't say holding back, but you could tell that it was not he wasn't just there to kill him. To me, it seemed like the brother was giving him a chance to prove himself. And I very quickly caught on to that dynamic. And then of course, when he showed him the toy and he had lost his fang and all these things with the backstory, you could tell that they cared about each other. And he was kind of looking out for his younger brother, even though he was, seen as weak or whatever. And he was giving him the opportunity to prove himself and become part of the clan or the tribe or whatnot.
Yeah, there was a clear level of respect between the two, which also something from Prey, because the only person in Prey that believes in Naru's character is her brother, who encourages Naru to go on the hunt, who supports Naru's, desire to be one of the hunters. So, another parallel to this film. We also, I think, meet who ends up being the bigger antagonist against Dek, bigger than the Kalisk, bigger than his father. It's glass doors.
I I was thinking this the whole time. Like, aren't these guys supposed to be like? I know he's a runt. We mentioned it 26 times in the first 5 minutes of the film that he's a runt, but like,
he really struggles with glass doors. Like, there's this scene where he can't get off the ship, and then there's a later scene, when they're confronting Tessa, where once again he's trapped behind a glass door and just can't break through a glass door. I'm just like, yeah, this is his Achilles heel, is a glass door. Like, you really want to get to Dak, just put up 4 walls and he's done for.
that's so funny.
So he gets launched out and he lands on Genna, and we immediately gather that this is a very hostile planet, lots of flora and fauna that is out to eat you or kill you or defend itself from you. Like, there's no way that anything can survive on this. And one of the things we see right away is he messes up a lot. Like, he's extremely fallible. He loses his weapons, he loses fights. Like, he's getting knocked around really fast, really quickly. And we realize that this guy's got a long way to go. And probably his biggest issue right now, outside of glass doors, has to be hubris. Like, this is a character who is struggling.
I think that's part of what makes him so likable, is that he's so flawed, and like, he's the runt, he's the smallest, he's already been like cast out, and then he has such a difficult time, and it's easy to like him, for me at least, because it's so endearing. Like, it's almost goofy in a way, where it's like silly that he's like he's struggling so much, and you're supposed to be this like super evolved predator, and you struggle with a glass door, just like the simplest things, where it's like, yeah, he has to learn very quickly, and you get on that planet and you realize like everything is against him, and it's going to be a struggle, and he's going to need some help for sure.
When you started talking about like the ultimate antagonist in this film, I think it's hilarious that you said glass door, but I actually thought you were going to say like bro culture or the patriarchy, because like one thing about Dek's character is that he's like, he's messing up every step of the way, and he has that hubris. The entire film is plagued by this like patriarchal culture that like Dek has completely married and is endeavoring to embody. So like at every turn, when he like could get ahead through collaboration or teamwork, he's like, no, I'm a predator and I hunt alone, alpha, blah 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 bullshit. And just like that same bro culture that we see like eating the guys up today was eating him up on this planet.
Mm-hmm. There's and we'll dive into it, particularly in the concluding scene of this film. I did a little research on this in post. What I learned is the Yautja culture is actually based in matriarchy, and we see that in the last scene, and we'll kind of unpack it then. But he seems more afraid of his mother than he ever was of his father. And when his mother's ship starts descending on the planet, and in fact, what I learned kind of in reading about this was the Yautja culture is run by the women. The men are the hunters, but they're not necessarily the planners. They're not necessarily the leaders. And it's the women in the culture who are actually calling the shots and actually leading the clans. And I thought that was interesting. But we run into this idea of individualism versus collectivism, that he believes which is ironic, because he's trying to earn a place within a clan by being an individual. And there's that's something that I'm not really sure makes sense to me. Like, he's trying to earn a place within a clan, but the clan is promoting individualism. So I don't and maybe I just don't know enough about the canon, but we're going to see him struggle with this idea that he believes he has to do things alone. And as he will learn, his ingenuity and his ability to embrace collectivism is what ends up making him stronger. You know, this idea of like creating a sum of all parts, like, you know, bringing in Tessa, bringing in Bud, you know, even the fact that in order for him to be saved, his brother had to intervene. You know, he is stronger when others are there. But we really quickly meet Thia, played by Elle Fanning. And I think tonally, we're now showing another. What I'm seeing now is we've jumped genres again, where every Predator film has been either horror sci-fi or just pure sci-fi or sci-fi action. And now we're introducing kind of like sci-fi action comedy. Like we're shifting the genres, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing, but I'm curious, like, Kat, this is your first Predator film in Alabama. This is, you know, you have a bit more history with this. How do we feel about the fact that we are now illustrating that we're going to shift the tone of this? This isn't going to be a horror film. This is going to be more, you know, general audience acceptable. We'll start with you, Kat.
So I thought this was like a really cool choice to kind of bring in a buddy comedy element. I really did feel like I was watching a buddy comedy like a lot of this film, and I think it's an opportunity to draw in like a brand new audience. Like this is like making it something that can be digestible to like a new crowd. And so I actually loved it.
I very much felt like we were on like a little Disney adventure with our two little pals. Like I tracked everything in this film as it unfolded. The second he buddied up with her, I was like, I know where this is going, which I loved also. I think that's why I kind of was like, oh, this might be my favorite Predator movie, because it's just so different and it's such a different story. And like he's trying to prove, like I said, the whole time that he's not this weak link. So he's so determined to like be the individual and prove to himself he can do it on his own, and he can't. He needs like these other little helpers and stuff, and that's where kind of like almost a personality unfolds. And I feel like we never really saw personality from any of the like Predator creatures before. And this is the first time he kind of has a bit of like personality to him, and I think that's why I liked it so much.
I would agree with that, with hesitation. I enjoyed it. And it, like you said, like it felt like a Disney movie. It is actually. Disney now owns 20th Century Studios. But even more so that like it felt canonically like a Star Wars movie, like a modern Star Wars movie. You have a hero who receives a call to action. They embark on the call to action. They realize they are not strong enough to go on this hero's journey alone. They embark guides, they embark mentors, they embark colleagues that help them get stronger as they go through it. And while I personally enjoyed it, I can understand why others would not, if that makes sense. I liked, I wouldn't say I liked, I loved Thia's character. I thought such a great addition to this. I would say I liked Bud's character. I wouldn't say I loved Bud's character, but I can understand why others would love Bud's character. Like, you know, thinking about like, you know, if we were to continue this idea of like a Star Wars analogy, like when I was a kid, I loved Ewoks, but a lot of people who, you know, they saw all these movies in theaters when they came out, they hated the Ewoks. It was like, oh, this is just for kids. This doesn't make any sense. You know, I hated the introduction of like Jar Jar Binks. I was like, that is so dumb. But yet kids love Jar Jar Binks. So I can like, that's why I say like, I like these elements, but I can understand why people will hate these elements because it is so against the grain for what has been canonically acceptable in this franchise. But the bandwidth I'm going to give Dan Trachtenberg, the director, is the fact that he did a traditional Predator film in Prey, and he did it exceptionally well. And the more I watch it, the more I would say it's my second favorite film in the series. And then he did that anthology animated series called Predator: Hero of Hero or Killer of Killers, which was wildly positively reviewed. So he's done that. And you know, when we argue that people aren't doing anything different, we then need to acknowledge when they do something different, and that it's okay to take a series like Predator and try it in different genres. So I'm going to give him some bandwidth on that. And I think it's, we can discuss whether or not it succeeds in the long run, but I'm okay with it as long as they don't do like 5 more of these, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to see a sequel where it's like Predator Bud's journey in part 2. Like, I don't need that.
I think we got like enough of his Dek story. I think we can see more. Like, and again, I was a little trepidatious going to, because I love horror films. I love Predator, like I said, but it's like, how much more can you do with
the same thing?
It's a lot of the same. And so I think it was just really refreshing to me. And like I said, it was like I got to learn a little bit more about him. He got to see one with like, some personality. It made me appreciate some of the other movies more, because you're like, oh, that guy has a story too. Like, each one of them has a little backstory, and it kind of like just gave you a little more. Again, I don't want to see them all like this. I don't want this to be the trend for Predator movies in the future. But I think one, in a word, wholesome Predator movie, it was refreshing for me. I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually do need I need Pixar and Dan Trachtenberg to get together and make like a little short of Bud's journey. So now that you mentioned it, that idea is going to live rent free in my head. I actually do need that. I felt like this was absolutely a Star Wars movie. In fact, we even had a trailer for the new Mandalorian and Grogu.
Yes, they did
in the beginning. So like, and I even added like a little Grogu to my background today, because I did feel like it was very similar. As a huge Star Wars person, I felt like I was watching a Star Wars movie, and I could see Disney's little fingerprints on it for sure. And I love that. That like, I know that James, you're like a little bit, I'm gonna say a little bit more of a fuddy-duddy, a little bit more of a traditionalist with this.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I know that you're like probably of the three of us the least impressed with this format, but I was tickled. I was delighted.
Well, and I, just to give context, like, I have to be able to like held both of these thoughts in my mind at the same time. Like, I can't be a complete, Yautja isolationist. Like, I can look at it and be like, I love the 1987 Predator. I would say that's about as close to a flawless action sci-fi horror film as you can get. And I am madly falling in love with Prey. Like, I would say from a filmmaker perspective, it is even superior than the 87 Predator, of how it's made and the acting and just the narrative structure of it and the pacing of it. Like, on a micro budget, which is, micro for, 20th Century Studios, but a direct to streaming budget, like, brilliant storytelling. And, I could not love those characters more. And also, I'm having a lot of fun in this new movie. Like, so I need to be able to hold both of these thoughts in my mind at the same time. Like, yes, I love this for what it is, and this works for me. Nothing else works. Like, part 2 through, the 7, I'm just like, it's just not for me. But this is also working. It's just different. And that's okay. That's why I'm saying, like, I like this because it is different. I just don't know if I need to see this a lot more, like, in this context. And we'll get into like some theories that are coming out with what happens next, because Disney and 20th Century have given Dan Trachtenberg the keys to the Predator kingdom. He has this now. He's now had 3 home runs in a row, like, provided that this does well in the box office and the reviews indicate it will do well. Like, he will be the person in charge of all Predator narratives moving forward, which I'm happy about. I'm all for, and he's hinted at some stuff. But the thing I want to dive into next is we kind of talked about Bud, but I want more opinions from you two on the Bud character, how the Bud character works. And then also we are introduced to Tessa, who is the sister. And we're introduced that they are both Weyland-Yutani synthetics, Weyland-Yutani being the evil corporation from the Alien franchise. So we're now creating a tie-in to the Alien films. What are your thoughts on these characters, how they're working in this movie, and or are they working in this movie? And we'll start with you, Alabama.
I really liked the comedy that they brought in. I think it would have really been a difficult movie had there not been, he needed dialogue with someone else.
Yes.
It would have been a real difficult movie to make if he was out on his own, or even if she was out on his own and the Bud character came in. He needed someone to kind of have that banter with, a little bit of the, present the story a little better. And I liked it. I liked that I thought it was funny that he called her a tool. Like, he very much had his boundaries. Like, you're a tool. You're not, like, we're not pals.
Compartmentalize her.
Yeah. And I liked it. I wasn't a huge fan of, like, the Bud character. I don't know if it was just like how it visually looked, maybe, to make the jump from, like, adolescent to full grown. It was kind of a strange character to me. But I feel like it was, like, a necessary part of the story. Again, like, the Bud character wasn't, like, my favorite, but I very much saw where it was going, like, where the story.
I think I wrote in my notebook when I was watching in the theaters, I think I wrote, "What the fuck is this weird monkey?" Like, that was, I didn't know what it was. I was just like, WTF, weird monkey. It was the note I wrote in my book. Kat, what are your thoughts?
I actually liked Bud, but again, I'm the Disney princess that you occasionally have on your podcast. So, like, obviously, I really loved the charming animal sidekick, and my daughter immediately, like I said, I went with my 15-year-old daughter. She immediately clocked that was the Callis kid. Like, as soon as
I didn't clock that at first.
My husband did too.
She immediately knew. As soon as she saw, like, the Callis, as soon as she saw the Callis face, she was like, "Oh, that's Bud's mom." Like, she she clocked it immediately. I was so proud. And I knew as soon as she said it that she was right. So, like, and so, like, obviously because of that, we saw where it was going quickly, and I was just delighted with, like, all the little, like, when he's, like, imitating Dek.
That was a funny scene.
He's imitating Dek. I forgot. Bud is a girl. I think we've misgendered her a bunch.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
But when she's imitating Dek and getting ready to go to sleep, like, are you kidding? That was adorable. That was, like,
adorable. Adorable isn't an adjective you hear often in this series. So I want to pivot from Bud to, like, the only other thing I'll say about Bud is I struggled with the CGI of it. Like, and I would say, like, from a visual perspective, like, outside of Bud, my contrast is, I keep coming back to Prey because it's the exact same team. It's the same director, same writer, and same cinematographer. There are clear shifts in the visual elements of this movie to overcome the fact that this movie is exceptionally reliant on CGI. And one of the things is the way they use depth of field. Everything in this movie is filmed at, photographers and filmmakers will understand, a very wide aperture, meaning only very small elements are in focus and everything else is severely out of focus. And then we're going to pull the focus. We're going to shift from, something that's in focus in the foreground to something that is in focus in the background. Then the foreground becomes wildly out of focus. Now, not that this is a bad thing to do, but it's done the entire movie, and it's done the entire time because this entire movie feels like it was filmed on a green screen. That there is nothing actually in the movie that is actually tangible and real, and that we have to kind of construct everything in post. And the way we're going to hide some of the CGI is with shallow depths of field. So a lot of those visual elements were pulling me out. And I was like, that's why I rewatched Prey last night, because I'm like, did they do that in Prey? No, they did not do that in Prey. They filmed in these like big vast plains in Canada, and you have these extraordinary sweeping shots, and the shots have like depth and tone and richness to them. I was like, okay, they didn't bring that into this movie. They're being very isolating in their shots and very isolating in their focus. And I feel like that was a crutch in this. But I want your opinions on Elle Fanning's other character, which is the sister, which is Tessa. She's playing two roles. She plays Thia, which I love Thia, love the portrayal. What do we think about Tessa? Is this the right antagonist for this film? We'll start with you, Kat.
First of all, our intro to Tessa is like tough as hell. Because we like, I don't know if you guys remember this visual, but like we see her, she is so she's a synthetic, she is tore up from the floor up. She looks like she's been through a blender and then thrown into a freezer. And the way that we can identify her as Tessa, not Thia, is that she's got like one eye that for whatever reason they don't bother to fix. Everything else about her is repaired, but in order for us to identify her as the bad guy, that one eye is like remains dead throughout the film. I did think she was a great antagonist in this. They introduce her as like a sister. We see that Thia is like throughout the film, like she is like endeavoring to get to her sister. Her sister saved her, so like she's gonna save her back. And then of course we meet Tessa, and Tessa's like, "Bitch, you thought." So I actually thought it was a great like Uno reverse moment when we realized that Tessa is not our friend.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Alabama?
The sister thing, I was like, what a great opportunity for her to like play two drastically different roles. I just didn't buy the like evil sister part. I don't know if it was just, it was something about her acting. I obviously get it that she's like the main antagonist and whatnot, but I didn't buy it. Just the acting from that, the cute, quirky character nailed it. The evil sister, it was lost on me. Like I understood she's supposed to be evil and whatnot, but it just seemed very like shallow, just kind of like it just didn't hit it for me.
Unfleshed out.
Yeah.
And I would echo that, because as much as I like Thia, the explanation we get, where every other Weyland Eutonic synthetic we've ever seen, from Ash to Bishop to David to Cole, has a bit of monotone to their presentation. And the explanation of Thia is, I was given more, what did she say? Sensitivity. Yeah, I was given more sensitivity, and thus, this is who I am. Although she seems to be the only one. She said her entire team was given this, which would indicate her sister, but everyone else feels not that. So I was like, something is missing here in the story that explains why Thia is one way, which Tessa is clearly not this way. And if Tessa ever was this way, then we needed something in Mother, the Mother from Alien, reprogramming her. We needed to more clearly see that Mother is changing her coding, changing her programming to make her something different. And in fact, all the other synthetics we see in this are all played by one actor. So like that explanation isn't holding much water to me anymore. And I just don't like this antagonist. This doesn't work for me. She doesn't feel like a big enough threat. Even when they do the thing that was like 100% fan service, which is they put her in a power loader from Aliens. Although it's a super power loader, it's a mega power loader. But they use the same sound effects, like the exact same sound stings from the 1986 Alien.
I did not know that. I love it when people give me the audio details.
Like visually they're like, oh, this is the power loader you saw in 86, only we made it 5 times bigger and we're going to pull the same sound effects.
I will say that when I saw that power loader, I literally I was in the theater going, yes, yes, yes. At all of the big explodey bits, I was just like, this is what I go to the movies for.
To me, it felt Avatar-y. Because the power loader from 86 was they literally made this thing. And Sigourney Weaver had to learn to use this thing that they constructed. This felt like the mech unit from Avatar because it was all CGI. And it didn't feel like, it sounded right because they used the same sounds, didn't feel right, didn't look the same. And in fact, I would say, like, as we get into this final conclusion, one, I feel like we're racing towards a conclusion, and I don't really feel like the battle was just like, oh, that wasn't that hard. Like, okay, here we are. We're at the conclusion now, and it doesn't seem like Tessa even stood much of a chance.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I also I do want to comment on the CGI thing, because I feel like I haven't seen too much good CGI in films lately, and I just finished Del Toro's Frankenstein, and the CGI in that is also like very plasticky looking. Like we've lost something in recent years, it feels like.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel like I felt like it was a little Disney buddy movie, and then it was missing some, like, the action part, very beginning, very end. Like, it was missing a little bit of that action. And like you said, like the CGI she's in that thing, it felt like Avatar. It felt like, why did you take the thing from Avatar? Like, what's going on? And I don't know, the fight was a little like again, with the whole movie, it was kind of like projected where it's going. Like, as soon as the little bud spit on him, my husband leaned over and said, "That's the baby." Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it was just very on the nose, which
telegraphing.
Yes. So like with the fight, it's like, we know exactly what's happening, what's next, what move they're doing, you know what I mean? So it was just, I would say, disappointing, but yeah, a little bit of the like, okay, where's the end of the movie? Like, is there going to be a surprise in the end of the movie? Like, because that was just kind of all it needed.
Yeah, and I'm not really proud to say that I was really struggling to stay awake at this point. Like, I saw it late Friday night, opening night, and there were a few times where an explosion or something like jolted me back in. I was like, oh yeah, sorry. Apparently I'd run out of caffeine, because I was like, okay, I just feel like the second act was so slowly paced that by the time we get to the conclusion, now we're running. And I was like, I don't know. Something about the pacing I was struggling with. And I just feel like, boy, I would have loved there to be another scene that explained why Tessa is the badass of this group, or how Tessa became the badass, or why Tessa even cares. Like, what's Tessa's, like, Thia, like, we see Tia's motivations. We see, when Thia sees what happened to her teammates, and she sees how Dek is evolving, and we see her evolve. I would like more with that, because I think Elle Fanning did good in that character. Tessa's just bad because reasons, script.
I thought Tessa had like a pretty clear directive. I can totally get on board with the criticisms that maybe she definitely wasn't as fleshed out as Thia or anything like that. Her motivations aren't made as clear. And I feel like the film could have used maybe an extra 15 minutes to maybe flesh that out a little bit, and maybe work on the pacing in the second act a little bit. Because I feel like those notes are valid, but I didn't feel like I didn't feel like her reason was just reasons. We see in the sequence when Mother is waking her up from being all tore up from the floor up, that the company is disappointed, and if you fuck this up again, we'll decommission you. She's literally fighting for her right to exist. And we have the parallel of Dek and his brother. Now we have Thia and her sister. Tessa had originally sacrificed herself to save Thia. But when she was repaired, like they kind of pluck that out of her. And like when they confront each other, like they have that full conversation of like, wait, you saved me before. Like, why? Like, and Tessa tells her, yeah, I saved you before and it almost cost me everything. I'll never make that mistake again. So like we see like her de-evolve in the film. I felt like it was clear.
I'll be honest, I missed that entirely. Like and you know what? Maybe that could have been one of the moments that my eyes just glazed, because had that been clearer to me, I'd be on board with that. Like, I like the idea of one pair of siblings evolving and the other pair of siblings de-evolving. I like that contrast. It was just lost on me. Did you catch that?
I did, but again, I guess part of it was just seemed like these are your orders. And like you said, or she explained that they all had this like sensitivity, which we seem to feel is like feelings. You know, they feel things like human feelings. So it's like, again, I needed a little more like, I guess, context. Like, okay, so these are your orders, so now you're evil. Like, maybe it just seemed a little like, okay.
Maybe if it were something along the lines of, once again, I'd never want to advocate movies being longer because they're long enough. If we saw or had more context of the callus destroying that original crew of synths and the separation of these sisters, or more in line of Mother actually rewriting the programming of the sister, and maybe there's a hesitation, or maybe there's a struggle, or maybe the sister being Tessa tries to fight the programming at some point but is unable to fight the programming. Something like that could have added a little bit more clarity in that structure, I think.
I bet you your next bucket of popcorn that scene exists on the cutting room floor, and when this gets released on DVD or whatever, like that'll be in deleted scenes. I guarantee
it wouldn't surprise me. Like, I mean, and you know, this is like, once again, like we've seen this team before and we've seen them execute this before. I just would say they've executed it better before. So, okay, the fact that maybe because their first two releases were direct to streaming, which says that the studio believed in them, but not enough to put it in theaters twice. Although the second one was made, I think, really intentionally for stream, being it was an anthology piece. So this is the studio saying, all right, we're putting you in theaters now. And maybe the studio had a lot more reins placed upon him or placed upon this team to, you know, so maybe there are certain things that, as you said, are left on the cutting room floor, certain things that test audiences shifted. But, you know, I mean, overwhelmingly, like people are really responding positively to this movie. The critics' response, it's the highest critically responded film in the 9 Predator films, and it has a very high audience score as well. So audience seems to be responding fairly well. I don't know the Venn diagram of, you know, people who are obsessed with Predator films and how they line up with this. But general audiences seem to be responding well. So to kind of bring this into the home stretch, he returns to Yautja Prime. He now has Tessa's head. His father rejects his application. You've been denied. And he overcomes his father in battle. I don't know if I buy that, but okay. Like, he overcame his father in battle by himself. That's the part I don't buy. Like, I don't think you learned enough on this planet, because everything you learned on this planet was about working with others. But then you overcame your father by yourself. Okay.
Fully agree with this.
But then Bud bites his head off. Okay, father's dead. One interesting point I want to illustrate here: his father kept his mask on the whole time. And one of the things I learned is you only remove your mask in this culture if you respect the other person. So his father not removing his mask was a sign that even though you brought me this trophy, I do not respect you. Even though you survived the hunt, I do not respect you. And I thought that was a fascinating little detail there. But then we go into like the mothers coming in, and Dek even looks more terrified of the mother. And, as we've talked about this being more of a matriarchal society, this really cues in like what could happen next. I'm just kind of curious, like, Kat, you're new to this. Alabama, you have more depth with this. What are your thoughts on where they can go next? Because they're hinting that, hey, we could do something else here. Kat, we'll go with you first. What do you think could happen next in this story?
I think you already nailed it. Like, it's going to be Bud's journey.
I hope not. I sincerely hope not.
Badlands 2, Bud's journey. Dan Trachtenberg, if you're watching, like, I need you and John Lasseter at Pixar to get together.
just like an animated TV show. Like, it would be like, the Clone Wars, but Bud's Wars.
Give us your money for these ideas that we're just
we'll take the royalties. Alabama, what do you think?
I think part of what I appreciated about this movie is like setting it up for the next. We're going somewhere completely different with the mother thing. I feel like that's a totally different story, more of what we're used to from a Predator story. And I hope that's where it's going. I hope this was a little gift, gave us a little bit of a backstory, and it like, you get to know and start to like the Yautja more, to where we're going next, where it's going to be like a Predator story about maybe their tribes or whatever, or like the dynamic of like their family, whatever, their lifestyle. I feel like that's what we kind of missed, because this is, correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is the first Predator movie. There was no humans in this movie.
No humans, which is why they were able to get away with the PG-13 rating.
There was no humans in this movie, which is strangely I appreciated, because there's something about like going to a movie and watching a bunch of humans get killed by this monster that is what creates the horror genre of it. And there wasn't this, and there were no humans. And I think I want to go on the Predator journey, maybe where we're not just hunting humans. Let's watch you hunt other animals or each other or whatever's going on with the next
aliens.
Yeah,
perhaps
that.
Aliens. Oh, so that cues into my hypothesis. So, did you see the animated anthology Killer of Killers? So, probably not. Did you? Okay. So that was Dan Trachtenberg's second installment. And it's just an animated anthology showing the Yautja, hunting in the on the planet Earth during 3 separate time frames in feudal Japan, during like a Viking exploration, and then during, I want to say World War I, might be World War II. And like each of these, humans coming in contact with the Yautja, and in each instance, did they succeed or not? The conclusion of that is, the Yautja had taken these 3 victorious individuals, put them in cryostasis, and then released them in a Roman Colosseum-esque battle against, like, their best of the best. The post-credit scene of this film shows a few characters held in cryostasis. It shows the character Dutch, which Arnold Schwarzenegger played in 1987. It showed the character Captain Harrigan, which was played by Danny Glover in Predator 2. And it showed Naru's character, who was from the film Prey. It showed all 3 in stasis, showing that the Yautja captured these 3 individuals and has held them in cryostasis. So that is in his canon, in this director's canon, in this writer's canon, that these humans have been held. And he's now had conversations with Arnold Schwarzenegger about the reprisal of the Dutch role from the 1987 film. What if he creates a series where he brings all these characters back, or as many of these characters as he can back, for some sort of unifying team? And I think the antagonist would be the aliens, because Dan Trachtenberg has also really expressed interest in trying to do an Alien v Predator film that would be like any Alien v Predator film you've ever seen before, so much so that you wouldn't even know it's an Alien vs Predator film until the aliens showed up in the movie. That's how he wants to do it. So what if that's the element? You bring in Dak, you bring in Dutch, you bring in Captain Harrigan, you bring in Naru. You have them combined as a unit who've been brought together by Dak's mother, who, as we may find out, is the actual planner to combat this alien presence that they see as a threat or as the ultimate prey. And they need this unification, this, because she now has seen the benefit of collaboration. We need that. That's my hypothesis.
Can I introduce one more theory?
Uh-huh.
I think the next one might be a mother versus mother.
So Dak's mother versus an alien mother? Versus who? Sorry.
So the mother, the Wayland Corporation mother, like.
Oh.
I kind of thought that was actually what they were setting up, because like obviously the corporation is going to come after Thia, the rogue robot, like who just like blew up their whole mission. Mm-hmm. So like obviously they're gonna come after her. Mother, we just saw Mother arrive to take care of Dek, so like I think it might be a mother versus mother, but I think it would be cool if it's mother versus mother and then like secretly halfway through aliens.
And, you know, to hit on that, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is canonically, per the TV show that just dropped this year, is run by a woman. So that could add to it as well. Okay. I'm curious. You know what? I would say that, you know, we're about to give our judgments, but judgments aside, I would say this franchise is in the right hands. Like the Predator franchise is in the right hands right now. And I am very curious to see where it goes. So it's time to pass judgment now. So Kat, we're going to start with you. How do you judge Predator Badlands?
I had a fantastic time at this movie. Again, like this is the kind of movie that I go to the movies for. And so I'm giving it 4.5 Gavels.
You can't do points. You got to choose.
I did points last time.
No, you didn't.
Five.
I rejected it.
5 out of 5.
What?
You forced me into this. Like,
all right, yeah.
You do. I have to do this because again, you're the fuddy-duddy, and I have to cancel out your vote.
So you've already projected my vote. Both times you projected my vote. All right, Alabama.
I will give this a 4. I really enjoyed it. I wouldn't say it was like a really great Predator film. I thought it was a great film. It was very enjoyable. I had a good time. I didn't expect to have as good of a time as I did, so maybe that's why I'm scoring it a little higher, but it felt very wholesome to me. It was wholesome.
And Kat, I would appreciate if you would stop reading my mind.
When I start lying, you can call me out for it. Like,
okay. I did enjoy this movie, and there's a lot that I had fun with in this movie. It was not what I expected, and I think that's okay. I will give it a 3. Yes, I think this was a good movie. I think I had fun with this movie. I don't know if I'd ever want to watch this movie again, per se. Like, this was fun, and this was enjoyable. And this, I would say, you know, Predator is filled with a lot of bad movies. So in contrast, this movie's great. Like, this is awesome. This is a fantastic movie. But in the realm of like sci-fi movies and like especially ones that have roots in horror, I would put this like, it was fun, it was enjoyable, but I've seen it now. I'm good. I want to see what they do with it next. I would say if this is the volley, let me see the spike now. I want to see what comes next. So that's what I'm excited about. But I would say go watch Prey. Like, that's my avocation. Go watch Prey, because I've seen it now 4 times, and each time I fall more in love with it. And I would say that is Dan Trachtenberg's best home run in this franchise. So we have a total of 12 out of 15, which is an incredibly high score. And I think, the discussion merits it. Like, this movie's enjoyable. We all had fun watching it. There are issues, narratively and in the visuals that could have been improved. But it's a fun movie. And ultimately we're trying to have fun with this. So want to thank Kat and want to thank Alabama for tuning into this episode of the Film Jury Podcast. You can get the Film Jury Podcast wherever you get your shows, as well as on YouTube. Check out our recent episodes on the Frankenstein 2025 installment, as well as our It franchise, where we are breaking down every film in the It series in celebration of the new HBO Max TV show, Welcome to Derry. Those are available, once again, wherever you get your podcasts. We appreciate your 5-star reviews on the Apple Podcast app and for sharing this podcast with a friend. And we will catch you all in the next screening. Take care.